inside the form or exist. My opponent, I am tempted to leave the car and drive. Leave it all behind. And if I sometime, I'll come, feel the steam and fall inside. Living it right, living it right, living it right.
Scores.
Yeah. What is going on, everybody? I'm in dark mode today. I'm too pasty for that bright ass white light, so I think I'm gonna work on that.
He's his own light. He's so bright.
That is 1000% true. I am way too fucking bright from the pastiness. Oh, what is going on, everybody? It is Clout, the Clout Goblins. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, guys, go out and support your local artists, man. You'd be surprised how much raw talent there actually is out in your areas. Like, there's at least one artist who's got raw talent and pretty good. And that was my buddy Dan. He's not like, he doesn't have any kind of real social media presence, but he's one of those genius guys who's crazy good at mathematics. So a guitar to him is basically numbers and colors. And he's like my buddy Chris. Like, both of them can just make up stuff on the fly and, you know, not have played in forever. But yeah, it was good times. Yeah, go out, get some grass, you know, touch some grass, get some grass, tap some ass.
Smoke some grass? No, don't do that.
Yeah. Hey, you know, if you do, it's like, marijuana is probably the least dangerous drug in the world. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure acetaminophen is one of the deadliest drugs in the world, and everybody pops it like candy. So, yeah.
That hacker lighting. Oh my god.
That's true.
I need to call the feds.
I need to get one of those LED ring lights. Probably do that.
Yeah, that's why. I say that's what I'm using. I have my LED ring light up here, and then I got a regular lamp over there. And of course, I mean, it's still like, I mean, the sun's
still got the natural
through,
lighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I got the blackout curtains. Like, I can't sleep if it's bright at all.
Yeah, I need blackout curtains. Like, because even though, you know, I mean, at night they're pretty good, the street lights still kind of come through a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the curtains you got look like they're pretty good. You just got to figure out a way to get them
pretty
tapped
good
down
overall.
on the side.
Yeah.
The by lighting. Oh yeah, like I'm definitely more of a warm tone with my pastiness. So, anyway, welcome to Clout Goblins. I am Flagrant, and this is my co-host Crash, the awesome dude from Orlando, Florida. Well, we met in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, I'm from the Panhandle.
Yeah, I'm
from the Panhandle. I'm from everywhere. I travel a lot.
Man, that's one thing I want my kids to do more of, because I've never really traveled a whole lot, and I wish I would have. And that's something I'm going to try to, like, I want to push my kids to do the stuff that I never had the opportunity or was taught to do, as far as seeing what the world's really like and preparing them for being an adult and functioning in the mess we have coming up.
Yeah, not to mention just, I mean, exposure to other countries, other cultures. I mean, even within the United States, like, culture changes from within just a few states over, or even one state over, even within the state, honestly.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
Honestly, like, the Panhandle is often referred to as Lower Alabama because we're more like them than we are the rest of Florida.
Well, that's like North Carolina.
I say we as if they just include me now. I've been here for like 2 years.
Oh yeah, you're a resident, man. Come on.
That's right. Yeah, I've wrestled an alligator.
You've seen your Florida man stuff and been there. But yeah, like North Carolina's the same way. Like I'm near the mountains, and it's completely different here compared to the Piedmont, compared to the flatter areas out there toward the coast. Was it coastal Piedmont and then mountain? Yeah.
Mhm.
And well, the big thing too is like cities. If you have a
Yeah.
big city center in your state, there's a huge cultural difference.
Oh yeah. I
Ah,
give cities a hard time, but I've honestly enjoyed city life. I've spent a decent portion of my life in some cities. Post college, I spent a large portion of my career in the DC Baltimore area,
oh yeah,
and as crappy as some of the neighborhoods are, and as crappy as their government is in terms of taking care of their people, the I mean, there are still like good culture. There's plenty to do there, and I mean, I did enjoy the life there. You don't get bored in the city, that's for sure.
yeah,
But you're less likely to get robbed out in the country. I will tell you
yeah.
that.
Like I like the ease of access as far as how easy it is to walk somewhere and get something that you need for like daily necessity stuff, or just to somewhere
Yes,
to go hang out or something.
yes.
But
When I was in well, I didn't live in DC. I lived in Northern Virginia. I just lived right at one of the. It was literally like a quarter mile from one of the metro stations, so I could get
mm,
anywhere in the city in 20, 30 minutes without having to drive and dealing with traffic and just the crazy traffic patterns that they have throughout the city, and just walk everywhere. It was nice.
that was the big thing. Like I just walked everywhere, and I think that does play a role in people trying to be healthy.
That's true. Watch out for the coyotes and the bears
And the bears, and the raccoons,
and
and
the
the
alligators if
possums,
you're in
and the
Florida.
squirrels, and the pythons if you're in Florida.
Yes.
Dude, people don't understand what kind of python problem is down there. It is crazy. Like you can go down there for a trip just to go python hunting and make decent money if you can find them.
We need to
It's
just do that. Just take a
I
long
would
weekend.
absolutely be down for that.
I'd be up for it.
Absolutely. Um,
We could probably get a few other guys in the probably in the fellowship to come down and do it. I'm sure.
oh yeah. Well, let's make sure they've got some gun skills and know how to handle a firearm. Because yeah, I don't trust too many people I haven't seen handle a gun at the range before or something like that.
Well, I mean, there's no shortage of ranges. We could start the day. We could
Mm,
start the weekend off with the day at the range. I like
yeah,
that.
that would be good.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man,
I have an AR-15. I haven't fired yet, so
that's gonna be my next big purchase. I've got a couple of guns of shotguns, and then some rifles and pistols and stuff. But um, all mine is like stuff that's been in the family. Like
mhm.
we got a 220. There's a 223 and what is my dad used to have a 7mm Magnum. Now that was a badass rifle. Um, yeah,
I mean, we could definitely get. I'd definitely throw it out there to the G&G crew. I'm sure
hmm
some of them, including Ryan, would be down for it.
oh yeah,
And
dude.
they're in the Orlando area, so
Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard to go to find some Everglades areas to start searching in.
yeah.
Hey, I'm wondering like, well, I guess you just about have to have a rifle unless you've got like a 12 gauge with some buckshot in it. Buckshot's probably the least the smallest caliber you could use for that though,
Yeah.
because if a gator runs up on you or something like that, you got to pierce that thick ass skull if you're wanting to live, because they do not fuck about. And either, well, I mean the snakes don't either. Dude, some of
No.
those pythons, their mouths are ridiculous, man. It's like a bandsaws in there. Got all those little sharp teeth and stuff.
Hmm.
Uh anyway, uh what should we get into first for the topics?
Uh,
Let's
let's
see.
start with GOP nominations because I'm thinking
Okay.
let's talk about that. Then let's move to Russian nukes and let's save Maui for last because I think I like that we keep a focus on on local issues and that we push for people getting involved with local stuff. Get involved with your community. Get to know your community. Because
Definitely.
in the end, it's you and your neighbors that are looking out for each other. As Maui demonstrates, I'm almost about to segue straight into it, but it's just like as Maui demonstrates, there's nobody to take care of you. We got to take care of ourselves, and that's the libertarian philosophy, is self-responsibility. I consider that Christian philosophy as well. Is that you rely on God, but person-wise, you don't outsource that to another person. You take care of yourself. You take care of your family. And then when those are in good spots, then you take care of your community.
Yeah, and even for the people who aren't hardcore religious or might be agnostic or something like that, the good people generally have a very good moral sense of duty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big thing to me. Like, just be a good person, help out who you can, and take care of yourself, and don't push stuff on people that causes them any harm or undue burden that you could take care of yourself, which is pretty much a libertarian philosophy.
Yeah, we believe in volunteerism, that we take care of ourselves and we take care of each other better than having some person who has a monopoly on violence. Like they're
Like the
a person
government.
like they're the absolute worst example of someone you should depend on, because that's literally like an abuser victim relationship, right? Or abuser codependent relationship is what we have with the government. Okay, anyway, so I didn't mean to segue into that, because like I said, I want to say that for last. So let's talk about GOP. Let's talk about one of the.
Yeah.
At some point, maybe we should talk about like the Libertarian Party, and
yeah, because there's some interesting. They still don't have a nominee yet, do they?
Well, the truth is that the way the nomination process works in the Libertarian Party, it's not really any different than it's slightly different in that instead of having multiple state conventions where they vote their delegates, and then those delegates belong to a particular candidate up until the nomination. The Libertarian Party's nomination occurs at the National Convention as opposed to leading up to the National Convention. So the state conventions appoint the delegates, but their voting doesn't occur until the National Convention. So there's no state party bylaws or even state laws that mandate that those delegates go to a particular person. And they also don't rely, obviously, on constituent polling. It's entirely internal party voting at the state convention and then the National Convention.
So not quite as gatekeepy as GOP and DNC.
Exactly, yes. And so the national I gotta look up when the national is next year. I want to say April, but I'd have to look that one up. I believe April. It's in DC. I remember that for sure. Toward 2024.
Let's see.
And we've had talks about like we should really get it sooner, since we're at a disadvantage. Since libertarians are at a disadvantage, it would behoove the party to perhaps get it sooner. But honestly, having those rules changed is a huge bureaucracy in and of itself, because the Libertarian Party isn't immune to bureaucracy, unfortunately. They have bylaws in place, so in order to change those bylaws, they have to do that at a national convention. And then just getting that proposal out there takes a lot of work and organization, getting people behind it to vote for it at the convention. So you have to get all of these state delegates to vote for it, are on board with it prior to a national convention. And you only have national conventions every 2 years for the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, and it looks like the convention this year is May 24th to May 26th.
Is this still in May? Gosh, I thought they moved there.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yep. That seems pretty late.
Yeah, no, it is. And this is something that comes up in libertarian circles. It's just like we spend all of our time. So like we have about half a dozen-ish declared candidates in the libertarian, we'll call it a primary right now. and some may still declare leading up to it, but obviously they'll be at a disadvantage because some people have already been campaigning for a couple months at this point. But yeah, we spent all of this time like just trying to pick a nominee, and then come May, it's like you're only 6 months away at that point. That's like, and you got to work. And the Libertarian Party has to work just to get ballot access in all 50 states still.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why they do it so late, just because of the financing. Because I know the Libertarian Party doesn't have anywhere near the same kind of access as the GOP and DNC.
I mean, maybe it'd be worth having if we could get somebody from National who's familiar with the history to do an interview, which I might be able to. I might DM Josh and see if he'd be willing to. I mean, I realize we're small. Josh Smith is one of the candidates for the Libertarian nominee, and he resigned. So he was the vice chair, but he resigned because, I mean, contrary to belief, Libertarian Party is not perfect either, and they have their own internal politics and corruption that we've been dealing with for years. That's why the Mises Caucus took over, and even after that, Josh has stated that like there's still issues, and so he stepped down. But then he decided to run for the presidential nomination. So anyway, but he's been involved with the Libertarian Party for years, so he does follow me on social media, but I think he follows everybody that follows him. So I'll reach out to him to see if he'd be willing for an interview.
Didn't Tim have someone on?
Yeah, that was him. Recently? Yeah, Josh Smith was on just last week.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I didn't catch it. Yeah.
It was Wednesday. It looks like. Yeah, It was Wednesday. Dude, that would be awesome. Like, I'm sure he could tell us a lot more about the internal workings of everything.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good to get him or Angela McCardle, Karen Ann Harlow's. She's the secretary.
It would be interesting to ask him about what we were talking about earlier about Maj Touré and his reparations. I don't guess it's a debate, but pitch.
Yeah, I would love to get his take on it.
And for you listening, like, we're not talking about reparations for just one group of people. Like, his argument is reparations for any group of people that the government has either shorted or reneged on a contract with, or not followed through on promises or something like that, which could go back to Irish descendants, Eastern European descendants who came over and were basically slaves for companies and corporations. Obviously African descendants. I think that, because for me it's either do that to where the people have been screwed over by the government, all of them get some kind of reparation, or just blank slate, start over and dismantle what's currently in place and make something that works for everyone again.
I can has, yes.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for California. Did California pass their reparations bill? I'm gonna go claim that I'm black and see what kind of check I can get.
I don't know. I don't know if they passed that. I don't think they have yet, because I feel like that would be huge news if it actually passed.
That's true. Well, I mean, what would be huge news is the follow-up of everybody claiming that they're black and going to
dude, can you imagine the Nigerian scams that would come out?
Yes,
dude, you thought getting the email from the prince is bad. Like, what's the COVID stuff? There was, what was it, like, was it 50 million or 500? It was like a ridiculous number that went to Nigerian scammers.
Oh my gosh.
I can't remember if it was for the PPE or the relief. Yeah, Willie. I mean, I'm kind of more with that, because let's face it, if the government was to do something like that, it would just end up hurting us in the long run, and probably the short term.
I think on principle it can make sense. Reparations from government can make sense. The problem is the government has no money that it doesn't either take from its citizens or that it prints. The government is broke. So it's just like, how do you make reparations from a broke entity.
Which is ridiculous given the amount of money they receive from taxpayers.
I know, right?
I can't. I saw a little short earlier. The guy was talking about how he has to pay for groceries that is taxed with money from a paycheck that is taxed to pay for
The
a home
corporation that paid
that he
him,
owns.
the corporation that paid him paid a corporate tax on that too.
Yeah, yeah. The corporation's tax for the money they make, and then the money they pay you gets taxed, and then the money you get paid, you pay 2 taxes for your groceries. You own a home, you still have to pay tax on it. The roads you drive on that you pay taxes to ride on, they don't get fixed, and then you ended up messing your car up because of a pothole they haven't fixed in 3 years, and you can't get any relief from it.
And then, I mean, the gas that you put in your car is taxed.
Yeah,
The
it
food
is
that you eat has its own,
crazily
will have
taxed.
its own. I mean, depending on the state, some states have gotten better about like exempting at least food, but generally there's extra taxes on the items itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some. It's so bad. It's
Well, speaking of the candidates, I mean, I'm not really looking forward to any of them except for maybe Vivek or
I mean, maybe I don't
RFK.
know. I'm starting to see some stuff. I haven't looked into it yet, but the people who have been posting about it, I'm like, I give them a lot of credit because they do their homework. So I'm wanting to look more into him.
Mm.
Like Risk Flex and Radix. I think Radix may have. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about that, but I know Risk Flex has a video that I bookmarked about him, and that it may just be all talk and not to expect much from him, just given his past. So we'll see what they have to say, what they show. They're very good. I know that those two have a very good history of showing receipts, so I know whatever they show me, I can count on them showing receipts at least.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing I do like about Vivek is he doesn't stammer around talking points or just spew talking points. He gives his honest opinion. Like, he fucking decimated Dana Bash on CNN recently, and I am absolutely going to find that because this is some shit we need to. This is what we need. We need people
And I
calling
mean,
out the bullshit.
it may be like, at least from my mind, maybe that's just like Trump. Like Trump for decades was a Democrat. And so like in 2016, I was warning people, just like, he realizes he's a Democrat, right? And he's running in the Republican ticket. But overall, I would consider him, despite some of the war crimes I would say he committed as president, I would say overall, I'd call him a net positive just because of the exposure he gave to the mainstream media, especially, and just to the deep state. I mean, this was the whole argument that me and a former colleague of ours, Fealty, had, if you remember, I think it was on one of Chrissy's member streams, where we had a lengthy debate about Trump. But I got to give him credit because, like, it's a very valid point that, like, the exposure that he gave to the deep state and the corporate media.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of price tag do you put on that? You know?
Yeah, and guys, like, Filthy he's very well thought out, and he goes deep into his stuff. Like, so if you get a chance to listen to his stuff, he makes really good points, and he brings up really good things, and he does really good work for Chrissy too. So
I mean, spending years studying philosophy will do that to you. So
yeah, you absolutely begin to question the deeper things and nuances that people would generally look over.
I think it would be a fun thing to watch a stream with Fealty and Ian Crossland.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Well, it would be like very interesting, but I feel like it would also be like hair-pullingly frustrating sometimes too.
Yes.
Like that's you get two like huge philosophy people, and they'll either connect or they'll completely fly over each other's heads with things or not want
Yes.
to concede or something like that. But I mean, that's a lot of things too, though. Like, at least with people, like, I could 100% see Filthy and Ian if they had a debate. I could see them still being friendly afterward. I don't see it going to some kind of vitriol and hatred like you see from the left nowadays. Like, you get people who on the left, all this stuff's coming out about how Trump was 100% right about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and the China deals and the Ukraine deals and the Russian deals, and they still think Trump. They still believe Russiagate.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what you show them. Like, they are programmed, and
They
they absolutely.
they still absolutely believe that Hillary was supposed to win 2016. Which, I
Yeah.
mean, technically she was chosen. I will say that. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
everybody knows that she
Yeah.
was the chosen one. They just didn't realize that they needed to cheat for her. They thought she had a shoe in.
Yeah. Well, I think with that a lot. I think the reason that failed is because they didn't count on the lack of Democratic voters coming out because they thought
Mhm.
she had it in the bag. I'm sure that played because he only won that election by like tens of thousands of votes. It wasn't big at all.
Well, no, he lost the popular vote, right?
Yeah, but
Well,
as
yeah.
far
So,
as
like the states where he won, yeah, it was very small margins
Mhm.
in the swing states. You're right.
And the one between him and Joe Biden was even less. It was like 16,000 votes across the what the fuck you call it? Dude, electoral college.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it was just a few states, a few states with, I think, 16 or 18,000 votes. That was it. And I would love to shove my foot up Brian Kemp's ass for not doing his fucking job in Georgia. And Maricopa County's got some stuff that's the one thing that went through with Kerry is actually turning some stuff out. I haven't checked up on it in a little bit, but I know that the court allowed one investigation to go through, or one filing to go through, and I think it's going to expose some really good things.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do we do at that point? Like, there's.
I mean, this is the thing that I'm worried about in 2024, that they're going to have to. All right. Obviously, between you and I, we don't believe in 81 million votes, right?
No. No.
Like
Come
81 million
on,
votes,
man.
my ass. By the way,
Yeah,
there's a song
with
out there.
counties at 110% voter turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, imagine how much more they're going to have to turn that up in the coming election.
Yeah.
Like, it was already obvious in 2020. How much worse is that going to be in 2024? And I'm just like, we talk about how, and I hate to bring up like violence, but it's just like the left has been willing to be violent for a long time, years, right? Since the beginning of Trump's, honestly, since before Trump's presidency. But during Trump's presidency, it just ramped up. Meanwhile, with the right, like it's kind of a trade-off. It's good in that it's like, okay, they have the conservatives and libertarians have self-control, but on the counter to that is that, well, but that's why the left wins. So it's like I don't want to argue giving up principle for the sake of winning, and so I'm not going to. But I do worry about what is the tipping point when normal people, and by normal people I mean anybody that's center, anybody that's right of left, right of progressive. So that's the center, that's the conservatives, libertarians. At what point do the normies decide they've had enough? And how scary does that get?
And another thing too is they've turned self-defense from the right into violence and domestic terrorism. Like, you can't even defend yourself anymore in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to really set things off. If
this is one reason why I'm a big proponent of migration. If you can get out of the states that will persecute you for that, do it. Like, that is something you shouldn't take lightly. At least get out of the big cities in those states. Like in Florida, even though Florida's not perfect, we have red flag laws. it's still going to be much better than, say, Washington or California.
Oh yeah.
A ton better. You're going to stand a much better chance. Remember, what was this? Zimmerman? George Zimmerman?
George Zimmerman and who was the guy?
Oh, Trayvon.
Yeah, Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, and he was acquitted, and rightfully so. If you follow that case, I'm not going to go into the details about that. I know there are people out there that still believe that he was. I can't even give the like. There's no point in giving progressives any credit for their views anymore. It's just so stupid. But it's like,
well, and cases like that are where you see the machine like in full force against the narrative, because hands up, don't shoot was a lie. That was Trayvon Martin.
No, that wasn't Trayvon. That was Michael Brown.
Okay, so that one was. Damn, I'm gonna have to.
So yeah, Trayvon Martin was the.
Which one was he?
So George Zimmerman was on Neighborhood Watch, and when he got out of his car and followed Trayvon because Trayvon took off, people tried to argue that him leaving his car was enough for him to be guilty of manslaughter, which is stupid. Well, anyway, he lost track of Trayvon. He was on the phone with 911 trying to get the cops out there, and at some point he hung up with 911. And then at this point we're speculating because all we have is George's story. But the way George tells it was that Trayvon stepped out of the bushes, confronted him, and then attacked him. And then it became essentially a fight, and they were on the ground. And when Trayvon said something that made him think that he was going for the gun, he wrestled for it, won that battle, and shot him. And that's the end of that story. So in the end, it's a self-defense case. Michael Brown was a case with the police officer, Officer Daryl. It was in St. Louis. Was it St. Louis or Kansas City? It was in Missouri. So that morning. Well, maybe not
Darren Wilson.
Darren Wilson, that's right. Not Daryl. Darren Wilson. So he had just robbed a store. I don't know what he took, but he just took some stuff and then walked out. So it wasn't like it wasn't armed robbery or anything. He just, I guess more or less, he just shoplifted and walked out. And when he was confronted, hey, look at that. Good job. Flagrant, you brought in a female. Just like your Twitter said. Good job, man. Hi, Lisa. So
I'm taking absolutely zero credit for that.
Well, if you're not gonna take credit, I'll take credit for it. I mean, this had some Asian face right here. So anyway, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Lisa. I just couldn't help myself. If you saw Flagrant's tweet, you'd understand. Anyway, so yeah, he was confronted by Officer Wilson. My name is not Lisa, or is Lisa Marie. Okay, sorry. And I mean, if that's a fake name, well, you have to tell me what your real name is if you want. You don't have to. Actually, so he didn't even confront. He pulled up on him in the car, and Michael Brown reached into the car and wrestled for the gun. There are bullet holes in the cop car from where it fired because Darren wrestled for the gun and pulled the trigger to try and shoot at him and get him to go away. And at some point, Michael Brown started to it's Joseph, the 10-year-old. Okay, hello, Joseph. We're getting
you're getting full credit for this troll.
I'll take it. So Michael Brown tries to take off, and Officer Darren gets out of the car. I believe, draws his weapon, and that's where the hands up, don't shoot thing comes from, which doesn't even make sense to say in that context. But because, I mean, the only thing that makes sense to say is just like, please don't shoot, and have your hands up. Well, anyway, according to the Officer Wilson, Michael charged at him, and so he fired. That's a stand your ground defense.
Yeah.
Like, clear as day. Granted, if Michael didn't charge at him, there'd be a case against Officer Wilson. But by all accounts, there were witnesses. The only one who witnessed that, if I recall correctly, that didn't or that went against Officer Wilson's story was Michael Brown's friend, who happened to be in the area as well, I guess. Or, well, I mean, I guess they were walking together when this whole thing went down. But his friend was there, and he was the one who said that Michael Brown said, "Hands up, don't shoot," or something. I don't know. But nobody else confirmed that. But that's what
Yeah.
the media ran with.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's stories like that. Like, then you had Ahmaud Arbery, which was completely misconstrued, and the guy who videotaped the incident got life in prison.
Yeah.
And George Floyd, like, no one watched that case. Like, probably 90% of people, probably 99% of people who think, what's his name? What was that cop's name?
God, why am I blanking right now?
I know, we were just talking about it right before.
Yeah.
Anyway, like 99% of people think that cop actually strangled him to death. And if anyone paid attention to the case, he didn't have his knee on his neck strangling him.
Oh, Derek Chauvin.
Yeah, Derek Chauvin.
Floyd. Yeah.
The medical examiner said that her first guess as to cause of death was drug overdose. Second was heart failure due to chronic heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
And then third was possible strangulation. And she said that only came into factor because she watched the video.
Yeah.
So that it's really disconcerting that the judicial system can be that skewed by mob mentality and narrative from the media.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, again, we talked about it last week. Kyle Rittenhouse. I guarantee that if it hadn't been white people who got shot and who died, it would have been a completely different story. And not because he was wrong in defending himself, but because the mob mentality would have been so crazy at that point.
Which story are you asking for, Lisa Joseph? You're talking about the tweet that I referred to from Flagrant, or are you talking about these what do you call it, legal cases?
Yeah.
Let me
Willie.
know. Yeah.
Willie, that's a good point. Soros DAs. But yeah, it's so we got way off the nominators. But yeah. speaking of the narrative shifting, this is what Vivek had to deal with when he was talking to Dana Bash.
Ramaswamy, thank you so much for joining me this morning, sir. I want to start with what I began the program with, which is this racist shooter killing 3 Black people in Jacksonville yesterday. What is your reaction to the shooting?
It is such a tragedy, and my heart goes out to those families. This should not be happening in the United States of America, and it is wrong. The reality is we have a mental health epidemic in this country. There are reports that this particular individual, the perpetrator, was indeed evaluated for mental health deficiencies as well.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get to that part.
Okay.
Epidemic.
Mental health is one aspect of these shootings, and apparently
give kerosene on that race, on discrimination on the basis of race. Media and establishment and use of racism were based culture that is heinous.
With the intent of killing Black people.
Okay,
I think that is heinous and deserves to be called.
So for those of you who don't know, like there was an actual white racist asshole who did go into a Dollar General and shot some Black people. And shit like that should be called out 100%, because yes, there is racism in the world. It's unavoidable, and because people have biased opinions that are based on whatever outdated information or ideology that has carried over. But racism isn't just a one race thing. Racism is in every race, every culture. Like, just take the Asians. There's so much racism between the different Asian groups. It's crazy. Like, apparently South Koreans are like worse than white slave owners back in the day. Like, apparently they hate everybody. But it's the same. Like, the Chinese look down on everybody. South Koreans look down on everybody. Japanese look down on everybody. So it's not just a one race or culture thing. But it should be called out, and it shouldn't. People should be criticized for it, and I think a lot of it is just because there's not enough cultural getting to know other cultures enough, or spending enough time with other people to see that, hey, we're all fucking humans, and the goal of the government is to keep us at each other's throats so that we don't pay attention to what the actual war that's going on, and that's the class war.
Discrimination on the basis of race. Let's stop discrimination.
Don't think the history. I want to ask you about a comment that you made about white supremacy in Iowa on Friday.
I've never once encountered that yet. I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just never met him. Never seen one. Never met one in my life. Right? Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner, and maybe those exist too.
So just because somebody hasn't encountered one doesn't mean that the notion of white supremacy doesn't exist as a threat in America. What do you think goes through the minds of the families of the 3 victims in yesterday's shooting when they hear you say that white supremacy is basically
I hate this crap, because they're just trying to get sound bites at this point, fishing for anything.
Just celebrating our diversity and our skin deep attributes, but celebrating what unites us across that diversity. That's what we've forgotten to revive as our next priority. Start for a remedy to pass this forward with colorblind.
On Friday, in addition to the comment we played, you took issue with comments from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She reportedly said, quote, "We don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice." About that, you said, "These are the words of the modern grand wizards of the modern KKK." You know, I'm sure, the KKK was responsible for more than a century's worth of horrific lynchings, rapes, murders of Black people. How in any way are the views you're talking about comparable to the views and atrocities committed by the KKK?
Because those views are exactly the same.
Yes.
Their views are exactly the same. That's exactly his point. Like, come on.
Ideologically, the views are exactly the same. And
when you consider the 2020 Summer of Love, I don't want to hear about what the KKK did versus what these people have done. Like, no, fuck off. All right, over $2 billion worth of damage across over 220 freaking cities, 3 dozen people dead in one summer.
And let's be clear, it wasn't just it was Black people who died, and brown people that died, and white people. Like, there wasn't a specific group. They don't care. It was just a rampage. And anyone who went against it, like David Dorn, got murdered. And I can't stand this whole we don't need another brown face who doesn't speak for brown voices. And just like they did with Larry Elder saying that we don't need another Black face that doesn't have.
That's exactly what the squad is. They're a bunch of brown voices that don't speak for brown people. They can fuck right off.
It's not just that. It's like which Black voice? Nigerians, African, the people who come from Africa, Haitians, Black Americans, and then brown people. Like, are we talking about Mexican people from Mexico, the Mexicans? Are we talking about Nicaraguans? Are we talking about Central Americans, Cubans? Who are you talking about? Because all those cultures are completely different from one another, and they all have different views. But one of the things that a lot of Central American and the lesser developed countries have in common is they're usually ran by tyrannical governments, and it's kill or be killed there. And they are extremely opposed to anything that takes power out of their hands and ties down their freedoms, which is like, again, polls are about as useless as taking a dump in your hand and seeing if there's gold in it.
Right.
But right now, Trump is polling at 20% with the Black community, which basically spells absolute defeat for dem. It said that if you get 20, if anybody takes 20% of the vote in the black community, the other party cannot win whatsoever. Democrats cannot win. Period. Like flat out, it's not going to happen. And
I mean, but they weren't supposed to win in 2020 by the polling either.
yeah, well,
By
on.
all
You're
metrics, by all metrics, the bellwether
Yeah.
counties, just the percentage of counties won. Yeah. Anyway.
Aw. See, I'm giving you total credit for this troll, dude. That is all you, man.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, he like this is what I like about Vivek. Like he doesn't back down from it like most politicians would.
What I said is the Grand Wizards of the KKK would be proud of what they would hear her say, because there's nothing more racist than saying that your skin color predicts something about the content of your viewpoints.
You didn't
or your
just say they
ideas.
would be proud. You said these are the words of the modern Grand Wizards of the modern KKK.
It is the same spirit. You're right about that, Dana. I think it is the same spirit to say that I can look at you and based on just your skin color, that I know something about the content of your character, that I know something about the content of the viewpoints you're allowed to express. For Ayanna Pressley to tell me that because of my skin color, I can't express my views, that is wrong. It is divisive. It is driving hate in this country. This is dividing our country to a breaking point.
That is a debate that is based on nonviolent discussion. That you just said you're using rhetoric, which she said she's using rhetoric. That's one thing. And another thing is to say that she represents and she is a modern version of a KKK, which, as you know, was dedicated to the subjugation and violence against Black people. How on earth is she a modern Grand Wizard of that kind of organization?
Let's be intellectually honest and get to the heart of what this debate ought to be about. There is a worldview that says that the remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. That if you're Black or brown, you have to have a particular point of view. That's from Ibram Kendi. That's from Ayanna Pressley, the people I quoted in my speech yesterday.
But can you have an intellectually honest conversation when you accuse her of being a Grand Wizard of the KKK?
And this is why mainstream media is dying.
Yeah, good.
And because of shit like that, like he's getting ready to completely dismantle it, and he's just sticking to his point that he's making, and they cannot have it. They cannot let it happen. They got to keep the narrative going. They've got to use any kind of ism they can to try to tear down any candidate that would actually stand for what Martin Luther King Jr. wanted: content of character and not just judging people based on their race. So the thing I like about, again, he doesn't back down. He actually thinks on his feet, and he gives you his honest opinion on things. And he's, like we talked about last week too, he's up to date on the recent culture stuff.
Yeah.
Where Donald Trump is a few steps behind. But I was talking to you earlier, and I think they're going to keep Trump off the ballot. And I think if they do that, Vivek will drop out in solidarity. I could see him staying in though, because let's face it, he's polling way better than anyone else in that group right now.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he actually would have a decent shot. I guess the question would just be, would the GOP feel compelled to cheat against him?
I absolutely think they would. Because I think Vivek would have no problem winning votes if he ran. Like, if they did that, he could totally pivot into pardoning Trump.
Mm-hmm. And
he would instantly win the MAGA base. And the populace, and anyone who's not asshole deep in leftist ideology. But I was thinking DeSantis, but you brought up a good point about another candidate. And that was Nikki Haley.
Yes.
And so I thought it was going to be DeSantis, because he's out of campaign cash. He's not polling well, and he's starting to get on talking points and he's half-assing stuff like at the debate. But what do you think Nikki Haley is going to get the nomination for?
I just think she's just next in line for whatever reason. I mean, the fact that Ron has ran out of campaign cash says that he hasn't been chosen yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why aren't the rich Republican backers giving him money. I mean, that's where I'm getting at. And so the one that comes next in line in my mind, because I don't think it's Pence, I don't think it's
No.
Christie,
Well,
or Ada Hutchinson.
I could see Pence because Pence is absolutely establishment, but he doesn't poll worth a shit, and no one would vote for him.
Right, but Nikki is polling at least better than them. So like, I mean, I don't know why they would choose Nikki over Ron. It seems like a fatal error. Not that I'm trying to give the freaking RNC any ideas. I mean, I hope they don't watch this, but it just seems like he would be the perfect choice for them, because at least some level of the MAGA base did go over to Ron, because Florida is the talk of the town. Everybody talks very well of Florida. Even though Florida shouldn't have the credit for the best response on COVID, it should be South Dakota, because
Yeah.
Kristi Noem is the only one to not lock down, period. The Florida, while they've done better than obviously all the blue states and a lot of the red states, they still kind of fell in line. Most of the pretty much almost all of the red states fell in line at the beginning. And when it came to reversing course, I will say Florida was at the forefront, but it still took time. It took a few months. I don't know how long, because I wasn't here yet. I was in Kansas dealing with that crap. They were even further backward than Florida was, because they have a Democratic governor. I mean, you would think they have Republican legislatures, but and city councils and commissioner boards, supervisor boards. But
somehow
still, they were
Democratic governor gets in there, just like North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I mean, the GOP governors don't really do very well actually in office. That's the reason why nobody liked Brownback, who was the previous governor. Like, nobody from their base, the libertarians certainly don't like him, and the blue ones didn't like him. But so I don't think it wasn't very hard for Laura Kelly to get in Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
But they still end up voting down ballot for their legislature. Take that for what it's worth. Because, I mean, like I said, that despite that, conditions aren't much better. Conditions are better in red states than blue states. And at least, I mean, when you discount the blue cities, which are pretty much the root of the problems in the red states that have them.
Yeah.
It's still tyranny on some level. And that, like, I can speak to experience from that in Kansas. That city, I was in Wichita. I mean, they had the same stupid rules. You know, like they shut down for a few months, and they let some places open up, and then they still had to close at like 10 p.m. because everybody knows the meme. COVID just goes to sleep at 10 p.m. or midnight or whatever they set it to. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because the gentlemen's clubs started getting food permits so that they could open back up.
Yeah, because everyone knows COVID only stays above the 4 foot mark. It doesn't get down to
as soon as you sit down, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to, yeah.
It knows when you're wanting to eat.
Exactly.
And Z, you are 1,000% correct about that. Because it was I think that one was if they would still support Trump if he was indicted. And like Vivek, 100%, hand was straight up in the air, and then Ron looked around to see the reaction, and then he half raised his hand.
I mean, that tells me that Ron isn't. This may be to his benefit, perhaps. That maybe he's not as narcissistic as the typical politician.
Well,
because I think that's part of what I see with Ron is that he, in the public space, he just seems timid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, like on paper, you know, like he at least in the media headlines where he's going after Disney and standing up for his state, it looks good. But whenever you actually see him out in public, he just seems timid. Yeah, I
I
feel
don't.
you, Rob. I understand people who feel that way too. That's how I felt for a long time.
So one of my thoughts about DeSantis is because he was really strong before he started running for president as the governor,
Yeah.
and he was making some good choices. He didn't make all the best choices, but it was a lot better than a lot of other places at the time. And part of me wonders if you're right. Like he's a timid guy who's trying to do the right thing, and then when he got thrown into the presidential, the people around him are just trying to force him to write a certain line and do the talking point stuff instead of what he actually wants to say and do. Because I'm sure, like once that level comes up, you get bombarded with people who say you have to do this or you're not going anywhere. Because, I mean, guys, the GOP and DNC, you talk about gatekeeping. You think media gatekeeping is bad? Like those organizations are 1,000% worse.
At
If you
all
don't,
levels.
yes,
It's not just the national or the state
and
parties. It's also your local affiliates.
and that's why I am more apt to look at Vivek than anyone else after Trump, because I think the big reason that Trump got elected is because he didn't need their money. He could campaign with his own cash. He
Mhm.
knew how to play the media, and Vivek is like a junior to that. He's smart. He keeps up with stuff. He doesn't care what the media thinks. He's got his own money. I guarantee he's not kissing anyone's ass to get money for his campaign.
It's true.
And I think that makes a huge difference. Whereas DeSantis is probably a decent guy, but what do you do whenever you're trying to run for the biggest office in the land, and then you start getting money from these people who want all these favors, or you don't get any support at all? And that's why I think people should. Vivek's doing the right thing by going on all these podcasts, and DeSantis I don't know who's advising him, who's telling him what to do. He needs a whole new team.
Mhm.
DeSantis should be hitting podcasts because mainstream is dead. Mainstream doesn't do anything but push the narrative, and that's it. You're not going to get anywhere. Just like with Vivek and Dana Bash, it's not going. You're not going to be able to get a word in edgewise. Like people really do want that long form conversation, like Tim does with his Culture War podcast on Fridays, or Rogan's doing with his interviews, or anything like that. They want true. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? No prompters, no talking points. Like spit it out. And Vivek's doing it, so I like him a lot better than any of the other candidates for the VP spot anyway. But
Yeah, next year is going to be an interesting year to watch. We'll be curious to see what sort of legal avenues are actually pursued. Like, I think
mm,
Trump, I mean, based on the Tucker interview, I think Trump realizes that he is on his own. I mean,
oh
I
yeah,
don't think he's definitely smart enough to realize it's like, okay, what they did in 2020, they're going to do again in 2024. I guess what I'm wondering is, and perhaps it's good to not give away the strategy so that it can be easily countered. But I do wonder, like, what is his strategy for countering that? I mean,
I think one thing that the Democrats are going to try to pull, because they don't have anyone that can, they don't have anybody that would poll above DeSantis or Vivek right now.
no.
And one of the theories is that they're going to ramp up a war, and it's going to be official, and it's going to be against Russia in Ukraine. And I think they're going to try to play that to Joe Biden's favor, but I think that'll backfire on them given the fuck ups that Joe Biden's had when it comes to that stuff. Like Afghanistan was an absolute fucking disaster.
Yeah.
at every single level. Every single level. And he did it just to spite Trump, which is fucking pathetic. Like, you can hate someone all you want, but when it comes to something like that, and you're dealing with what's the safest for our people and our allies and the people in the region who need to get out, dude, that's evil in my opinion. That is evil, selfish, narcissistic shit. And that people who do that absolutely do not deserve to have the power that they have.
I don't recall what Ron has said on the Ukraine war, but generally I'm going to say that to me it seems like all of the Republican candidates have been pro-war in some sense. Even Trump and Vivek, even though they've been against the Ukraine, being involved with the Ukraine-Russia war, the Vivek recently was talking about declaring war on the cartels, and I believe I recall Trump saying something similar. And while
Mhm.
I agree that the cartels are evil, those families are evil, I do not believe that our best bet is to just fire up the war machine yet again. Like this is what we've been doing for decades. When are we going to stop and realize that like we are giving rise to these powers that are our enemies, you know? I mean,
Well,
are they enemies of this country? Yeah, but how much of that is just backlash from what we've done, especially like in the Middle East, from what we're doing in South America. And for those who don't know, I'm talking about we're funding this migrant crisis.
yep.
Like we're
And
literally funding these people coming up, and then we're giving them incentives to come here because we're promising them to take care of them, and we're giving them like phones and some cash to, in some places housing. I mean, in some places, it's actually been kind of a lottery for them as well. I feel sorry for them because in some places they're just out in the streets with the rest of our homeless. It's really quite sad.
well, and you touch on something like as far as I'm concerned, there is no country that's actually a true ally to us. And not even the European countries.
Hmm.
Like there's always been an animosity and a anger or judgment towards America by every single country you go to. And it's not necessarily because of the people. It's because it is definitely because of the government and what we've done and how we've exploited a lot of areas. And but I think every major world government does that, because I mean Russia does it, China does it, uh, Europe does it. It's not just specific to us,
Hmm.
but everyone likes to turn it toward us. And I wonder if that's because of the resources that we have available to us that we just don't use the way we should, because we still exploit the Middle Eastern countries, Africa, uh, sweatshops in China and Asia. We exploit a lot of things in a lot of other countries, and it's all for personal gain of the politicians and the elites. Like, to me, corporations should not be able to take their shops to China at all. Like, you should have to, if you want to do business in America and be an American based company, you have to be in America. Like, no matter what you're making or what you're doing.
The market could handle this better if we had a culture that cared about that more.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the problem. I mean, the market could take care of this issue if we had a culture that cared about that more, despite the American government. Like, what keeps us from giving the Bud Light treatment to say Android or Apple? Well, I'll tell you what, it's that we're addicted to these things,
Hmm.
you know, and we don't have a ton. There's just not a ton of competition out there for us to flee to. and we are too complacent and comfortable.
So that
Bud
might
Light is a very
change.
easy thing to give up versus
Oh yeah,
yeah,
because yeah, there's tons of other options,
yeah.
and same thing with Target.
Hmm.
There's plenty of other places to get clothes. Clothes online are super cheap, but then again, where are they coming from? Nobody looks into that. The phone stuff and the electronics and all the niceties that we have, that might change if we actually get a chip manufacturing base going here again. Because I 100% believe we're just going to abandon Taiwan as far as the U.S. government.
Yeah, more than
And
likely.
I mean, it really does suck because, and I don't know the detailed history of it, but from what I understand, Taiwan is the original Chinese government,
Yes.
and they fled there during their wars. And when they tried to get back, CCP said, "No, we're in charge," and they can retaliate against them in any way, or uh, reclaim the seats that they had and the power that they had. Now, Z, let's go back to. Could you imagine how big of a change it would be if we went back to corded phones? Or wireless in the home only?
Yeah,
No
just
cell.
landlines, really. Yeah, if we
Yeah,
just had landlines.
dude, culture would change overnight.
Yeah,
You want to talk about people
imagine.
going out and interacting again, dude? It would be insane how quickly communities would change just from that alone. But I mean, you got to do the devil's advocate thing. If it weren't for cell phones, how many people would not know about the things the government's doing?
That's true because we didn't know for decades what the government was up to because we just
Hmm.
listened to what's his name, Walter Cronkite,
Yeah, who
or
who was the most trusted name in media, and found out that he was a shill too.
yeah, they all were, all of them. So it was honestly, it was just easier to keep the populace in line, and so, well, I would say at least some of that time was more peaceful. At what cost?
Hmm.
You know, it was more comfortable.
Yeah.
That's why
Well, see,
the boomer generation was able to happen was because
they were able to sweep away everything they didn't want us to know about.
yeah.
And we didn't know how badly we were getting screwed over into the jobs market. We didn't, like, when was it NAFTA fucking ruined a lot of jobs, and it decimated the manufacturing base here. And then you had TPP.
Mhm.
Didn't Obama do TPP, or was it Bush?
No, I think it predated Obama. I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but Trump ended that.
Yeah.
And as soon as he got uh as soon as he was not allowed to remain in office, um,
Oh my, we're
they
digging deep. We're digging deep. Well, wait, the CIA didn't exist till, or did it not exist until World War II? Was it
I
World War
mean,
II?
there is some good evidence that something very strange happened on the Titanic. A lot of strange coincidences as far as people that were on it and what happened.
Yeah, I've heard these stories. 1913 was a very interesting year. In the decade after that was a very interesting time.
Yeah, I
It's when
mean,
we got income tax. It's when we got the central banking.
well, and if you look at the British monarchy, I wouldn't doubt that once America was established, Britain's first priority was getting people into office and getting people in positions of power to start extracting wealth for the upper classes and the um, the former monarchy class.
The monarch class.
Well, I mean, you've seen that thing where all the presidents except for,
Yeah, except
yeah, I
hold
don't
on, who
know.
was the exception?
It went up to Bush, and I can't remember who the one exception was, but they were all related to.
Yeah, Obama wasn't an exception either, right?
I don't
I
know.
heard it.
I don't think it went up to Obama. I think it was
Oh,
just
okay.
up to Bush. Yeah, as far
Okay.
as when the girl did the project on it.
I'll have to look that up because I could have sworn there was one exception in there where she said everybody but this one, and I don't remember who that was.
I don't either.
Yeah.
There was one,
Yeah.
and it's just mighty interesting that it
Wasn't
dates back
JFK,
to.
was it? The one they killed?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't think so.
That would be
Um,
interesting.
let's see. Martin Van Buren was the only one.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Wow.
Uh,
What president was he? What number? He's one of those obscure ones that don't get talked about.
I don't remember. I'll have to look. I'm trying to see if, let's see, during the presidential campaign news that Dick Cheney and then candidate Barack Obama were distant cousins, became fodder for comics and pundits alike. And now a Bay Area middle schoolers revealed family ties among some of American history's most achieved politicians. So, yeah.
So
Oh,
there's another. So just to kind of tickles y'all's palates. I don't think that's the right phrase, but there's another conspiracy theory out there that kind of takes this a step further, and it's a religious conspiracy theory. Genesis chapter 6 talks about the Nephilim, which are the offspring of angels and human women. They were allegedly giants and were the primary cause for why. Oh, eighth president. Okay. They were a primary cause for why God sent the flood.
yeah.
But the theory goes that they survived, and that Goliath from the story David and Goliath was also a Nephilim, which is why he was so big. The Amalekites that the Israelites had to fight against to take their land were also giants, and it's like, were those Nephilim? So there's this theory out there. I've only heard of it, and I think I saw Melanie Mack post about it actually. I've just not looked deep into it. I just find it funny. Called the 13 Nephilim bloodlines. That all of these elites that rule us are actually the Nephilim who have just never died off, and so I don't know.
See,
I kind of want to dig into it just to see what's there. It's I find it amusing.
I am convinced that there was a completely super advanced civilization before some cataclysmic event just wrecked the earth and ruined human civilization thousands of years ago.
Well, the flood would have been about 4,500-ish years ago, I think 4,600. I forget.
Yeah, you get some cataclysmic tsunami, like a giant asteroid strikes in the middle of the Pacific, and yeah, a lot of shit is going to get flooded out. And if you were back then and you were using like primitive means to survive, but then again, the structures and things that have started popping up indicate that it was an advanced civilization. So it's, I don't know, man. The more and more I hear about things that are coming out, the more I'm convinced that we had an advanced civilization before a cataclysmic event.
It very well could be, and this would actually fall in line with that whole line of conspiracy theory. The angels that gave birth to the Nephilim also allegedly taught mankind, and this is according to the Book of Enoch, or Books of Enoch, which I have a copy of. I haven't read it yet, but they taught humans technology, and was also part of their sin. Was that they were trying to take over. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what their motivations were, other than they'd already fallen from grace, so I guess maybe they were bored. Who knows? But yeah, like, what's funny is that when they talk about ancient civilizations, they often the paranormal researchers will credit it to potential evidence for alien life. And I'll say maybe it wasn't aliens, maybe it was just fallen angels.
Yeah. I mean, dude, who actually knows? Because I don't trust any history anymore, given how much the narrative machine changes the actual stories. Like,
I need a profile picture for StreamYard.
yeah, you should set that up. I think I did it while we were streaming last weekend.
I'll have to
But
figure
yeah,
it out.
so world leaders are probably descendants of demons or something like that.
I mean, it would not surprise me
No.
at all. Like anybody who follows me may know that I've talked about lizard people, and it's been a long-standing conspiracy theory for a long time that our rulers are actually lizard people in disguise. But I when I say lizard people, I mean like literal demons. I think that there is a kind of demon that does look like lizards, and I think that they take after the serpent from Genesis 1 or Genesis 3. Yeah, 3.
Well,
And the Garden of Eden.
why are they so dead set on all these underground bunkers? Because if you get so far down in the earth, you can maintain a steady temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And like that one cave system in China, I forget how long it was, but underground, completely isolated, but there were intricate carvings all over the walls. And I mean, this wasn't like some little, oh, it's like a big cave. No, this was a massive cave system. I gotta look up what it's called.
We should do another show that's like that just talks about this stuff with kind of like Nerdrotic's other show.
Yeah,
that he has with Krigler and yeah.
Longview Cave System. I think it was created more than 2,000 years ago. No recordings of it whatsoever in any kind of documentation. And let's see, I'm trying. It's 100. No wait.
Share the page.
All right. There you go. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, okay, description. Caves are very large, consistent of their man-made origin. The average floor area of each cave is 1,000 meters squared, so 11,000 square foot in each cave area, with up to 98 feet in height, and the total area covered is over 320,000 square feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's humongous.
Yeah.
This is in China?
Yep. So let's see. I'm trying to get an acres. It's about 7.5 acres.
Wow.
Of intricate, extremely detailed designs and no history of it whatsoever.
So, like the house is generally on about a quarter-ish acre, a little bit less actually.
Mm-hmm.
So if we just say 4 houses per acre, you're talking basically about 30 houses worth of. But that's just length and width wise. That doesn't include the 100-foot height. Or no, that was 98 meters, right? Or was that feet?
Let's see. 98 feet.
Oh,
30
okay,
meters,
30
98
meters. Okay.
feet. Yeah.
That's still. What is that?
Dude, I mean, look at that picture.
That's like 8 stories.
Yeah.
It's 8 stories high.
Like, look at that detail. Like, how did they do that? 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, what happened to all that scaffolding?
Yeah. And I mean, look at how the everything's scored. Like that looks like some kind of digging equipment. Like it came in and it did one layer, then it did another layer, then it did another layer.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it looks like to me.
Could very well be.
And unless you're going to tell me that people hand dug like
Oh,
4 foot depths at a time.
if they were hand digging, that you're talking how many slaves,
Dude.
and how many
Dude.
lives lost.
Yeah, like cave-ins would definitely have happened.
Yeah.
I just saw this while I was looking this up, but apparently 30 million people still live in caves in China too. Yeah.
What?
So a tenth of our population in China still live in caves.
That's insane. Well,
I mean, I think that
I
would be
don't.
really cool.
I think it's pretty cool. Like I don't. Yeah, I don't mean that in the pejorative.
I guess it
mean,
depends
I
on
just
what
mean
kind of.
that's just incredible. That's probably a better word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, if I had the money, I'd absolutely build me an underground bunker.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Get down like a good 40 or 50 feet. And dude, people don't understand how much insulation that is either. You could warm a room with a tea candle
Mm-hmm.
because that heat is not dissipating anywhere except for in that area, and you're not gonna be affected by weather at all.
Yeah.
I wonder how deep you have to go to reach like a moderate climate.
Hmm.
Oh, damn.
Speaking of underground bunkers, you might need one should a Russian nuke ever come our way. I'm gonna try and use this as a segue. Really rough one.
Yeah, I have to.
While you're looking that up, is part of which is the big reason why I just cannot stand anybody that is just pro involvement with the Ukraine-Russia war. Like, we should be seeking peace for a number of reasons. One, just the less fighting there is, the less lives lost unnecessarily. And two, we should never take war with a nuclear power lightly, like some people do. And this happens on the right as well. Like this, and that drives me even more nuts because Fox News, if you didn't think that well, everybody who's watching this knows that Fox News is just establishment shilling anyway.
Yeah.
But I have run into people who are conservative or Republican, and I'll never forget, I got into a quick argument with a woman, and this was supposed to be like a church thing where it's just a bunch of people at a bar just talking about theology or whatever. And I said, did I trigger her? I think I triggered her by saying that Fox News lies. And she's like, no, they don't. And I'm like, yeah, they do. And it just turned into a mess.
Dude, why do you think they got rid of Tucker?
Exactly.
He started talking about things that were true, but the establishment doesn't want to come to light, which is stupid because Tucker went from like 2 million viewers a night, mostly older people, but he was the highest person in the key demos, to now he's getting millions of views for each one of his shows on YouTube, on Twitter. All they did was make him more popular. It's like getting canceled these days is the best thing for your media career.
Yeah.
Because then people are like, whoa, ho, ho, ho. So they don't want us to know something that he talked about.
Yep.
And
so many people have caught on. So again, let me go back to this whole like tipping point idea. When do the normies say they've had enough, and what does that look like?
So, I mean, one thing with the Trump stuff and what happens within the next year is definitely I think that's gonna have a big shift and impact. But to get a true we're tired of this shit and we're going to end it now, you're really, like I've always said, something very serious has to happen in a personal way to these people. You have to not be able to feed your kids. You have to not be able to afford housing or something like that.
Which a lot of people are already in that boat, but
Mhm.
it's almost like it's almost like the boiling frog analogy. If you get people slowly into poverty, does the tipping point come too late?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, look at it. It's always been incremental pain.
Yeah.
It's never been just, you're fucked. Have a nice day. It's always been this slow little piece by piece by piece by piece over time. Like, everyone gives credit to the Chinese for their 100-year-long plans,
Hmm.
but the U.S. has done it just as good, if to the people who founded it. Like, over 250 some odd years now, it went from Wild West, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, and you take what's yours is yours, what's mine is mine, unless you want to barter or trade or something like that,
Hmm.
to the government just damn near controlling everything. And it's so hard to survive on your own without having to have some kind of interaction with the government,
Yeah.
especially if you don't have any kind of liquidity or savings or money to put into building up a homestead and buying land. Like, people who have land that's left to them have no idea how huge of a big step they have above everyone else.
Yeah.
And nowadays they could care less. They don't understand what they have. And I think that's going to come into play before too long too.
Homesteads are going to be high value in the next few years.
Hmm.
Super high value.
Well,
I'm hoping that when I finally buy a property, I'm gonna buy some land with it, so has the potential for homesteading.
West Virginia is not a bad place, and you can get land really cheap up there.
I've heard.
Yeah, you can still get a good bit of land up there for pretty cheap. And yes, Z, nukes allow us to pivot back toward the nuclear war. Russia has deployed its Satan II missile into active combat duty recently. This was a couple days ago, and I think this one is about 1,000 times stronger than the bombs we dropped in Japan.
All
They
right, so
call it.
let's put that into context. So when we say 1,000 times stronger, what is that actually measuring? And I think most people their question would be like I would start with like blast radius. I think the blast radius of uh, Little Man Fat Boy was I want to say a couple miles, or was it a little bit bigger?
I think it was like 1.5 miles or something
Mile and
like
a half.
that.
Okay.
I think that
So
was as
like,
far as radiation death exposure.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, just initial blast exposure, right?
Mhm.
Because so you have the initial blast, and then you have the outreach of the radiation from that blast, which goes out a little bit farther, and then you have the fallout, which goes for miles and miles and miles. Uh, just because the wind carries it, it basically ionizes the particles in the air. If I understand correctly, I ought to get my father in
Um,
on this because he actually he he used to be bomb squad, so he knows about this stuff.
well, nuke, as far as radiation goes, it's from the actual splitting of atoms, and the things that will kill you almost instantly are alpha and beta, because alpha is core nuclear material from atoms being dispersed. Beta is are like I think beta is
Yeah,
electrons that are dispersed.
alpha is essentially a helium atom's nucleus
Mhm.
equivalent. So it's like That's what it
It's
radiates.
the protons and neutrons that get split off and
Yes. And then
sheared off and
the beta
fly out.
radiation is all electrons, and then gamma
Yeah.
radiation is like straight. I mean,
It's
gamma
photon.
radiation is on the EMF spectrum, so it's essentially high frequency radiation.
Gamma is photon radiation,
Yeah.
so it's akin to sunlight. But when we're talking about radiation that we know of, it's a lot more powerful than just light photon radiation, because the photons that we get from the sun, they're strong enough to cause displacement of things, but it takes a long time with a lot of exposure. Like skin cancer doesn't just happen from one exposure to the sunlight
Mhm.
for an extended period of time. And really at that point, it's like playing the lottery, because the photon has to strike the electrons or the core. It's usually, I don't think photons can displace anything in the nucleus, but it has to hit the electron at just the right spot to displace that electron and cause a changing ionic charge, to where then that atom seeks out to bind to a different atom, or it picks up something extra, and that starts to cause mutations, especially at the genetic level.
Mhm.
Like PET, positron emission tomography. It's similar to CT, except it uses annihilation to get imaging. So PET is literally antimatter. It's positrons, which are positively charged electrons, which collide with regular electrons, and the charges of each other, the negative from the electron and the positive from the positron, when they meet, they cause a neutral, and that reaction causes annihilation of the electron and the positron. And that energy coming off is what the PET scanners actually pick up. And that's why they're really good at finding cancerous areas, because they tag it to a glucose backbone and cancer-like sugars. So it's really easy to do that. But what's interesting is, if you have a PET scan done, you have to remain still. You cannot do anything. One of the site I was at for it, they had this chick. She was athlete, really in shape, took care of her body, and they make you wait about 30 minutes before they scan you, so that the glucose uptake is within parameters for a body sitting at neutral. And she was sitting there working her abs the whole time. So when they did the scan, the muscles were starved for energy, so they started uptaking all the glucose, and it was just an outline of her abs where they were trying to see if there was cancer there. So that it's crazy. It really is. God, I love Nuke Med. It was so fun, and that really got me into wanting to look into like nuclear physics or something like that, because chemistry has such a tie to literally anything you do. But chemistry is just chemistry you have to have a particular brain for, because you will get lost if you don't have a very good teacher, or you're good at looking up instructional material yourself and studying on it. Okay, sorry, I went on a rant about radiation and all that shit, so I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so back to the questions then. So if we're talking 1,000 times more powerful, on what metrics does that mean? Because I don't think that means it's not 1,000-mile radius, right?
No. Well, its nickname is a tsunami bomb because it's strong enough to displace that much of the atmosphere to where it can cause a tsunami. So if they were to launch one off the West Coast, whatever area of the West Coast is within the path of that explosion, tsunami's going to supposedly a tsunami would wipe out whatever's on the West Coast in that immediate region. Let's
So you're
see.
talking about California?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm not going to entertain that idea. I'm not going to move. I'm like,
So
it's not necessarily, is that necessarily a bad thing?
what,
We could just eliminate the West Coast, just make Nevada the new West Coast.
supposedly it can travel 6,000 to 11,000 miles. I'm trying to find.
Let's see, what's the circumference of the Earth again? I used to know this.
I think it's like,
Isn't
isn't it like 50 some?
25,000?
Yeah, 20. Yeah, you might. I think it is 25.
Yeah, because I think the radius is approximately, it's a little less than 8,000 miles. And so, yeah, if you multiply that by 3, by pi-ish, it should be about 25-ish thousand, I think. So almost the entire, because technically you only need to be able to go halfway, right? Because if you're over half, you just go the other direction. It's pretty close.
Yeah, it's easily reaching America.
Yeah.
Easily. And supposedly it's got a lot of anti-missile defenses on it.
Anti-missile defense.
Yeah. Yep. Where I cannot, let's see. I'm trying to look up.
That honestly feels like Russian propaganda. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, we have anti-missile defense measures. So like, take your best shot. Like that's what that sounds like.
Damn. Why can I not find anything? Here we go. Let's see if this has got. Let's share this. Okay. So it said it would just completely wipe out London with an estimated 4.2 million fatalities.
How big is London, like landmass wise?
Well, the orange radius is 5.49 kilometers wide.
So that's 3.5 miles.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a significant size. And honestly, the initial blast isn't what you actually have to worry about. That's not the most devastating part of it. It's the fallout.
Well,
and where the ionized radiation.
I mean, if you're caught in that, if you're caught in that radius, you're dead anyway.
Oh yeah.
When you're not out running it, if you're not already in a deep bunker, yeah, you're just screwed. And then so like, assuming you aren't in the middle of that, then yeah, you have to worry about fallout, which is why it's good to know what the prevailing wind direction is in your area, because that is the direction that the fallout will head. So if you're going to flee the area, you want to head against that wind direction.
And mountainous regions are your friend, because usually mountains have downstreams instead of upstreams. And another interesting tidbit for radiation, if for some reason you know there's alpha or beta particles that are going to come flying at you, the absolute best thing you can do is get in water. Because with that stuff, again, it's like the lottery. The more dense of a structure you're behind, the less likely those particles are going to be able to squeeze in between the other atoms. Water will absolutely stop. 1 inch of water will stop every bit of alpha radiation. And then your next best thing is for gamma, beta, and alpha is going to be lead. And then like after that, if you can get underground though, like you don't have to get really that far underground. I would say if you're 10 feet or more underground, you're fine. Unless it's just you're in the blast area and it just removes that much soil.
Yeah, if you're in the blast crater.
Yeah.
Not much you can do there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's an absolutely scary prospect, and it's one of the reasons I'm glad I don't live in a city center, because they're going to target those before anything else. They're not going to shoot waste nuclear missiles in small town rural areas.
Where's
Unless there's
where's the nearest base to you? Military base?
Jacksonville. That's
Okay.
over on the coast. So
Okay.
it's Bragg.
'Cause that's
Fort
the other thing you have to consider. It's just like, yeah, you have city centers and then you have strategic military.
The closest thing I could see getting hit would
targets.
be Charlotte,
Mhm.
because Charlotte is apparently the backup for the entire banking system, or the stock market, or something like that. I think that's where the first backup is. But honestly, if they wanted to take that down, they could just do cyber attacks. They wouldn't need to do all that. They could just cyber attack and completely wipe out so many things.
True.
Hey, what's up, Meta? Yeah, there you go. That makes sense, and it's an inverse square law too. So, for every foot of, I can't remember how it goes, but I think for every foot of distance you reduce the exposure by square that distance, or something like that.
Or rather, the formula is that it has the distance, or it's r in the denominator and it's squared, right?
I think so.
And so how exactly that translates into what you're calculating, essentially every unit of distance is squared, and then divides into the rest of that formula. I mean, this is the case in things like noise reduction, or noise intensity rather. I'm trying to think. There are other things that this applies to, but I'm just kind of blanking on it. But like, this shows up in, I mean, obviously if you take a physics class, but this also shows up in OSHA with safety regulations as well, with things that can harm you. There's a few things that fall into this inverse squared law with distance.
Yeah, it's I actually remembered it correctly. It's you square the distance. So if you're near radiation and you go 2 feet away, then the intensity is going to be reduced by 4 times. You go 3 feet away, it's going to be reduced by 9 times. You go 4 feet away, it's going to be reduced by 16 times.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. God, damn it! This makes me want to break out my nuke med stuff.
About to go to school tonight.
Yeah, dude, radiation's awesome. It's crazy, and that's one thing I wish I had the mind for chemistry. Like the chemistry guy we had out at the college he was an intense guy. He worked for I think it was Exxon, and he was one of the chemical engineers for the fuel out there, and he did crazy stuff when he worked with them. And then he went to a community trade college, and he had chemistry 1, which had about a 50% failure rate, and then he had a chemistry 2, which might have had 8 to 10 people in it a year, and then about half of those ended up, at least 20% ended up not taking it after the first couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Gotta get out for that withdrawal deadline.
Yeah. Yep.
So that they don't charge you.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't think nukes are going to be. I think if they do use nukes, it's going to be more for combat lines than it is to be just decimating.
More than likely, I think. I don't. It's not likely that they're going to use it, just because. I mean, mutually assured destruction still kind of exists to a degree. Nobody wants to risk, oh, if I shoot this nuke, someone might shoot back, and the amount of devastation that can cause. But that doesn't mean that the chance is not 0.
Yeah.
My main point. You know, it's not like, oh, greater than 50%. No, I think it's a small chance. I mean, like, who knows what the odds are on that? You know, like, I don't think you could really know that without knowing the people involved. but it's not something to be trifled with.
Like I definitely see Ukraine just getting decimated with nukes before any place else. If that keeps ramping up. But at that point, I think it's our cooler head's going to prevail, or are we going to have someone who just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing?
Mm-hmm.
Because if Putin starts dropping nukes whenever they start pushing into Russia, I mean, technically that's a defensive reaction to protect your border. But then everyone makes this argument about Ukraine supposing to have their own sovereignty and they should be able to defend themselves from a Russian invasion. And they don't understand the absolute atrocities that went into the past 15 years in the Donbass region against the Eastern Ukrainians who still had very deep ties to Russia.
Yeah, like I'm not excusing anything that Putin does. I don't trust him any more than I trust Biden or who's the current prime minister in the UK.
Shit, I don't know.
I don't even know anymore because, like I said, I don't trust him, so I don't follow it because I know that. Or Trudeau, there's another person I don't trust. I don't trust him. All I'm saying is that if you poke a bear with a stick, don't be surprised when he takes a swipe at you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I'm getting at, is that it's like this isn't some, you know, like, not that you should be beating on a poor dog either, but it's like, isn't some like little dog that you can kick around? You know, it's like, Russia's not someone that you should be trifling with. Okay, so like when he takes a swipe and he hurts a lot of people, and you've been the one poking at it,
well, and
you ought to look in the mirror a bit before you start blaming the bear.
That's the thing too. Like I mean, Putin's put up quite a bit given the length of time that stuff's been happening in the Donbass.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you look back on it, like he probably, if he really wanted to, he would have had a good justification for entering the Donbass a decade ago.
I mean, I'm sure that there have been more private conversations that have happened between Putin and some of our political elite that have kept him from doing such things. Like we really need to start thinking about these political elites more as like mafia bosses.
Yeah.
And mob bosses. What we're seeing is too big. It was a big gang war happening right now, and we're the victims because we're the ones who get drafted into. Well, I mean, luckily U.S. hasn't sent troops there, but like the Ukrainians are the victims of this at this point. And
well,
even
they haven't sent uniform troops.
Right. Yeah, I know they've sent like special ops who are just like training people over there. Who knows what they've really done, but yeah, like the innocent civilians within Ukraine, to some degree, I do have sympathy for soldiers. Yes, I get that there is an argument to be made about like just doing your job versus, you know, having a moral code and not standing for it.
I feel really fucking bad for the Ukrainian citizens because some of the videos that come out from this prisoners of war, they were talking about that on Jimmy Dore. Like one of these prisoners of war was a 45-year-old dude. Like apparently in Ukraine, they're just going around rounding up people and just throwing them at the front line saying, fucking do it or you're dead.
Yeah.
And that's fucking horrible, man. That's tyrannical to a crazy degree. And that story's not getting out. You don't ever hear that narrative. And this narrative about how, Russia's taking losses. Yeah, at a 1-to-8 ratio. That's not good, man. That is not good at all.
I mean, if it weren't for NATO, like this war would have been over like ages ago. There was a peace deal on the table, but because NATO made
Boris Johnson and the U.S. government tanked that shit.
Essentially, I mean, I don't know exactly what they did to botch this, but I know that they're the ones who botched it.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, I don't give any benefit of the doubt when it comes to their motives. As far as I'm concerned, they want war because they're lobbyists at Raytheon and Lockheed and whoever else demand it.
Well, it's not just that. I think it's they want to, for some reason, they want to resource strangle. Well, yeah, actually, that's what it is. They want to keep Russia from having any kind of chance to make money in Europe with the natural gas that they have.
Yeah.
That's the main thing about it. And now they're getting greedy and trying to cut off any kind of warm water access they have, and it's just pissing Russia off. And why, like, not to make light of anything, but the fucking money that we sent over to Ukraine, we could have paid reparations and given reparations to the people bitching about reparations. And there's so many things we could have fixed here at home, but they don't give a fuck about regular people.
I mean, the leftists keep saying that it only takes about 45 billion to cure world hunger. Not that that's true or anything, but it's like, why is there never any complaint about overseas money?
20 billion to end homelessness, supposedly.
Allegedly. I mean, honestly, like, the truth is, if the government tried to do that for that amount, one, it just wouldn't work. You'd end up with
90% of it would just be bureaucratic red tape.
Exactly.
Shit.
Exactly.
That's why charities are a fucking scam. That's why charities for homelessness don't fucking work. Because the 501c3 is nonprofit and tax deductible, but the 501c4 pays all the people who run the 501c3.
Right, but your donations are all recorded to the 501c3, so you get to deduct it from your taxes. It's all just tax havens for the rich. And then even then, none of the money actually goes to the people who need it.
No.
I mean, if it does, it's a very minuscule amount, and it's primarily just for optics, so they could take a photo of them. Hey, we helped this homeless person.
Yeah. I didn't realize how late it's getting.
I know, we haven't even talked about Maui yet.
I know.
Let's talk about Maui.
Yeah, we'll do a quick little thing about Maui. Let's see. Here we go. Let's share this. So again, guys, go check out Jimmy Dore because he's doing better journalism and commentary than anyone on the mainstream right now. I'm actually going to link.
How long before we can stop calling them mainstream? Because I feel like
that's true. It should be legacy, just legacy.
Media. Yeah, they're just legacy. They're dinosaur media.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Simcast tonight. That's right. It is Sunday night.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's take a listen at this guy who spoke in Maui.
I'm going to get on the plane because we need answers. These people need answers. This is one of the city councils once again. And he's calling out some people. He wants to know who on that board who is invested in the 15-minute cities.
Now, keep in mind,
yes,
this amounts to basically, if you want to yell at Verizon customer service in like the
same thing.
You know what I mean? Like all
you want to yell at Uber.
All the people that live there.
Yeah,
they're yelling at like these reps that are clearly idiots that are put there because they're idiots, and their job is to absorb the anger. And then meanwhile, the mainstream, they're not going to report on it.
Exactly.
And a bunch of people it's probably fine. They'll handle it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Where's the media blackout? The fact that,
like climate change or something. I don't know.
I have to go there because they're not doing their job. Take a listen to this.
I am testifying on my concerns
we got volume?
Of the governor's emergency proclamation that happened 3 weeks prior to the fire, and how it suspended 7 state statutes, of which exonerated everything that you guys are in charge of. Covers county organization administration. Chapter 46, collective bargaining was rescinded. School impact fees, collective bargaining was rescinded, and To my knowledge, this was the first emergency proclamation in the country that didn't have a preceding incident. Normally it's like a hurricane, boom, we got an emergency proclamation. But this was just, from my knowledge, was just to streamline development on Maui, and it is allocated all decision-making power to one person, the housing officer of the governor, Nani Medeiros, who's unelected, who can trump every single thing that you do and everything that you say and every item that we cover without any input from the community, without any public discourse, without sunshine law. I love what you said, Lahaina's not for sale. Please include us. But I don't see that happening. They're moving forward with they're meeting with developers, private landowners, and not a lot of community unless you know how to maneuver correctly. So before I go to my next item, I would just like to ask each council member to let me know, are you in favor of this emergency proclamation that takes away sunshine law, collective bargaining, all your power in decision making? I would like it if you did me a kindness, and before I go on to the next item that I want to testify on, who's in favor of that? Because I have serious concerns.
Mr. Huey, we don't have discussions at this point.
That is the stupidest thing response I.
We don't have discussions at this point.
Like, first of all, so how did he even get to the microphone? Excuse me. So, like, you had some portion in your meeting scheduled to where people could come to the microphone. You let him speak for a minute. He had his time. And you're going to say, we don't have this. Excuse me? Mm-hmm. That's not in line with parliamentary law. That's not how that works.
That is something that people need to pay attention to in their local areas too, because there are a lot of school boards. You can have public commentary because they're required by law to have it. They don't have to answer you. And that's something I think needs to change dramatically for local governments. Be it to be able to ask questions and get answers, then not give them time to either ignore it or prepare a statement that still doesn't answer what's going on, or only answer it whenever it's favorable for them. And it's, dude, there is some shit going on in Maui that is questionable at the least and scary at the worst.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people are saying that their videos are getting suppressed on YouTube. They're getting suppressed on TikTok. They're getting suppressed on Instagram. Stay with us, but take a look at this here.
Okay, at what point are we going to take this seriously? This is coming directly from the State Department that there are at least 2,000 children unaccounted for. 2,000 children. What is going on? Why is it not being reported? Why are even serious commentators making kind of flippant jokes about this? Where is the government?
By serious commentators, he's referring to legacy media bullshitters.
Yeah. Where are the answers? Someone needs to step up. Josh Green needs to step down.
This whole rant, I mean, I'm glad people are waking up, but holy shit, dude, where have you been for 7 years?
Yeah.
I mean, actually longer. Like, some of us have seen this for a lot longer, but it's like, it's just kind of weird to me to see the same rant over and over and over again, because it's just somebody new waking up to the same old thing. It's just like, oh, the corporate media is lying to you. Yeah, no shit.
But
and when we warned you before, those of us who have been warning get labeled as conspiracy theorists. And then there's like no accountability for people who just ignored the signs for so long. I mean, I'm glad you're waking up, but I would like to see more responsibility from people who, from just normies. I'm not talking about progressives, because, I mean, you can't take anything they say seriously, but like normies who have labeled conservatives and libertarians and just independents as conspiracy theorists for pointing out that the corporate media has been lying to you for years. And it takes this to wake you up? Like, come on, man.
That's what I'm talking about, though. something serious and devastating has to happen on a personal level to get people to actually fucking try to take action.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a sad reality of it. There's too many people that are complacent, like their conveniences, and think it doesn't matter. And they like I'm glad I started getting into politics about 5 years ago. Like it took me that long because I've come to realize why they call it a civic duty. It's not something you want to do. It's something you wish you could just trust the people to take care of who are in charge. And then you get slapped in the fucking face with a big government cock and you're forced to choke on it to get you to actually wake up and say, I don't like this shit. And I don't know, man. Like I said, this next year is going to be nuts. I think something crazy is going to happen because they're not just going to let Trump keep getting. They're not going to make it easy or just let it slide and happen. They're going to pull bullshit. They're going to ramp up wars. They're going to create further division among the general population as much as they can. Anything to absolve themselves from responsibility and making changes that benefit the people. But that's just going to that'll keep incrementing up to civil unrest on a massive scale, and not just say one political faction scale. So, yeah. Let's see. Where is and okay. And for those waiting, there is the link to Simpcast tonight. Julianne's on tonight.
Melanie Mac is too.
Yeah, Melanie Mac, Stealthy Y'all. Tree of Logic's on. She's pretty cool. She is pretty cool. And of course, Chrissy, who's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, just I guess it's the old adage, buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride because it be coming harshly. Yeah, oh. Yeah, and Simpcast is starting. Late and gay. But we were a little late and gay too, so I don't know, man. You got anything else?
Nah, I kind of just got a little bit distracted because something showed up on my Twitter feed that I feel like I have to respond to.
I got you.
I'm like, I need to just get off Twitter. Why do I ever get back on it?
Well, I almost feel like it's a necessary evil now.
I know, right?
Because it's where popular news topics that people are afraid to cover go. But again, that's the legacy media is falling apart. They're going to step into places like YouTube next, and they're going to start tamping down on other things, and they're going to start subsidizing YouTube, and they're going to be like, okay, we'll take the money because it'll keep our shareholders happy. And oh yeah, dude, Twitter's the best for memes and trolling. I mean, it's a very toxic place, but there's also a lot of, depending on who you follow, you can get a lot of good information. So, yeah, YouTube's going to be the next legacy media venture, I think. So, well, guys, I guess that's all for us today. We didn't get to get into Maui as much as we probably wanted to, because I wanted to cover some of the things that got suspended, but maybe we'll touch on it some more, because I'm sure there's going to be more stuff coming out about it this week, especially with the dude that was hosting Jimmy Dore, he's actually going to go down there and do some investigating and reporting with some people that he's got contacts with.
Wait a second. What'd you do to get blocked by Malice? How'd you get blocked by Mr. Malice?
Yeah, that's a hell of a step, dude.
I gotta know what you did here. And it better not be for giving away a joke or the troll, because you know that it's already explicitly forbidden. What you did do it. You did ruin the troll, didn't you? I ruined his fun.
Well, guys, go out, touch some grass, get some sunshine. I've been doing the Huberman stuff this past week, and I actually feel better, even though I've still got something going on with the digestive stuff. Like
I need to
still
jump
don't
more
have.
on that, like with the cold showers, and
I've taken a cold.
I'm pretty good with the sunlight stuff, but
yeah,
I don't do
I've
cold
been
showers.
getting up, getting some sunlight, drinking salt water, and salt water. Drinking some salt water because your brain needs those ions, and it's good for getting that your brain woke up. And I've taken a cold shower every day this week, and it sucks, but that's part of the reason you do it. Like you need.
That's why I don't do it in the mornings. Because holy crap.
you need to do something you're uncomfortable with, because it is proven to increase your dopamine levels, and it gets the adrenaline going, and it'll keep you going for a few hours. So then wait about 2 hours before you get caffeine. I know it sucks, but the adenosine needs to get cleared out of your system, or your caffeine is going to block adenosine clearance, and that's where you're going to get that afternoon crash. So try to hold off on caffeine, coffee, and stuff for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then just get a little exercise. That's really all you got to do. So, but yeah, Crash, where can people find you, man?
Find me on Twitter. Apparently, I can't get away from it. CrashMonoJR.
Yeah, it's gonna be flagrant triggers everywhere for me except for Twitter. It's just trigger with the hard R. And yeah, we'll be getting. I need to check a couple things for the campaign to get a machine to do direct to customer orders instead of dealing with the fucking third party guys who, yeah. If you've been listening for a while, you know the whole story. Oh, Forest Mommy!
Hey!
Gosh. And yes, absolutely go check out this woman, especially if you live in the Arvada district of Colorado. We need her. We need her in politics, because holy shit, that would just be awesome.
Get her on that city council.
Yes, yes. Dude, I should start calling businesses in Arvada and be like, vote for Jessica Finsky.
Should.
That's not a... And that's what's crazy too, like, the East Palestine, we need to touch up on that. Because some soil, I saw where some soil stuff was coming back, and it's ridiculous. But all I did, like, just call places in that area, call businesses. Somebody will talk to you eventually. Like, if you want to get started in like investigative journalism or something like that, just do the basic stuff. Like, I want to get a hold of somebody in this region, but I don't know anybody. Who should I call? Just call businesses, because there's going to be a business that's going to talk to you or have a dissenting opinion about what the narrative is. So
remember, they're just normies too. They're just normie people.
Yep. The populist movement is exploding for a reason. And that's going to be the key to some revolution, some change, hopefully within the next 5 years. Because I think something's going to pop off before long. Which won't be fun, but yeah, sometimes it's necessary. But all right, guys, we'll let y'all go. Everybody have a good weekend. Chrissy's just now starting up. She's going over her dates and stuff, so pop over there and give her a hello and check out Simpcast tonight, because it's usually a pretty good time. We'll be back next weekend. But yeah, as far as the campaign, just trying to get an app. So I think I'm going to do it through the website. Just need to get an app to keep track of all the sales and stuff and donations. So everybody's up to date on what's going on. And we will catch you guys next weekend. You got anything before we go, Crash?
Nah, just keep an eye out. The campaign is going to be a big push on that. We want to get our favorite T-shirts back out on the market.
Yep. And if somebody's going to put in serious money, like they're going to get some very nice stuff out of it. So, but even if you can't, like any kind of anything given is going to be extremely appreciated by me, and it's because it means a lot, and I really do want to get it going. And hey, like it's one of the things I believe in this product because it lasts. It's not built for just absolute destruction right off the bat. So you'll get a product that'll last the lifetime of the shirt. I can guarantee that unless something crazy happens. But yeah, we'll get that going soon. And Chris is going now. Head over, hit her up. You guys have fun. Have a good rest of your weekend. Have a safe Labor Day. Watch out for fucking drunk assholes because they are out there. And just be chill. Peace. Catch y'all later.
Peace.